the bell has rung. So get seated and join Elementary Schooled for today's interview.
Welcome to Elementary School. This is season 2, episode 12. Thank you for joining us. I'm so grateful to all of our listeners and all of our sponsorship that has carried us through this season. Today, we are talking about a really important subject that is on every parent's mind, probably daily, if you're like me, the hunt for our students' biggest bully. That's what we're talking about. And I'm grateful to you, Aimee Winder-Newton. You are the senior advisor to Governor Cox for the state of Utah and the director of the Office of Families. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And will you tell us about that, being the director of the Office of Families, how long that's been in place and how that came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in 2022, Governor Cox in his State of the State address talked about the need to have an Office of Families. His goal is to be able to look proactively at how we can better strengthen families so we get better outcomes for our kids and save money and social service costs and problems down the road. And so it's really about looking at proactive policy or things that government needs to get out of to be able to help families, and initiatives that we can use to help educate and communicate with parents and just try to help our families to be a better place for our kids to get the things that they need. You know, years ago, I joined the board for Prevent Child Abuse Utah and did that for several years and really started to understand like what childhood trauma does and how it impacts people later on. In Salt Lake County, I started the first ever Salt Lake County Intergenerational Poverty Task Force to look at how do we break the cycle of poverty from one generation to the next. And so there's been some things like that that have been great because it's, you know, I've been able to take little pieces and carry it over to some of the stuff that I do. And of course, our governor's got great ideas and a really good grasp on how we look at policy long term. So it's been a great honor to work for him.
I want to thank you just on behalf of educators and parents and living in the state of Utah. Thank you for your efforts, and we're so grateful for you.
Well, thank you. And thanks for what you do. We know educators have a really tough job right now. In fact, my daughter-in-law is an elementary school teacher, and my son is a junior high English teacher. And so I have kiddos who are educators, and I see what they have to deal with. I know you guys have heavy burdens placed on your shoulders. You know, we expect you to teach our kids, but also, you know, be psychologists and social workers and, you know, everything else. And it's sometimes parents don't make it as easy as maybe it was in the past to be supportive of teachers, and that's unfortunate. So we really appreciate our educators.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's dive in. We're talking about a campaign today, the hunt for our students' biggest bully. And it's not just for students in Utah. This is the biggest bully everywhere for students.
Yeah.
Will you share
So as we look at mental health, the mental health crisis, especially of our youth, it's a top concern for state officials because we know that that affects so many other things. It affects learning, it affects sleeping. I mean, there's so many things that are affected by mental health. And guess what the big bully is? It's social media. It's having kids on social media at younger and younger ages. And it's terrifying if you think through all of the things that they're exposed to. Sextortion, predators, bullying. It used to be we would get bullied at school, right? And you could go home and get a reprieve from it. Oh no, these poor kids being on social media are now bullied 24/7. I mean, it's awful. You look at FOMO and how when we were kids, if you missed a party on Friday night and you weren't invited, yeah, you might hear about it on Monday. Well, now kids don't get invited to stuff and watch everyone at the party through social media and just sit home and wonder what's wrong with me. And so, you know, there's so many things that are hard about it. But one of the biggest issues with social media is the addictive algorithms. The things that these algorithms do to try to keep kids on, because the kid is the product. They're the ones that the social media is selling advertising to. We have heard time and time again of stories of kids who were depressed and looking at some things that were are in that realm. And next thing they know, it's carried them down this path. In fact, I met a family who's suing TikTok because of their son's suicide. And it's those addictive algorithms that were the culprit. We also know that a lot of eating disorders among girls have cropped up since the invention of social media, because, you know, they start Googling diet things, and next thing you know, those algorithms curate material to convince them that they should starve themselves. And it's very unfortunate. And so one of the things that we did, so there's a couple things that we've done as a state. The first one is the governor announced that we were going to do legislation to rein in social media companies. And we were one of the first states in the nation to come up with comprehensive legislation on social media. The second thing is through lawsuits. And so the state is suing a couple of the social media companies for some of the harm that's been caused to our kids. And then the third thing is an education campaign to help warn parents of the effects of social media for their kids. And so those are things that I have been involved in, and we're just needing to get the word out to parents of, you know, they make it sound like 13 is a safe age. It's not. Even our U.S. Surgeon General has come out and said 13 is way too young to have your kids on social media. The governor says, wait till you're an adult. The U.S. Surgeon General says, you know, look at the maturity of your child, 16, 17, 18. Those are better ages to consider. But at the end of the day, we hope that parents will stop giving their kids social media. There's national statistics that say about half of kids say that social media makes them feel worse. Only 14% say that it makes them feel better about themselves. The CDC says 57% of teen girls are persistently sad or hopeless. This one's startling. Almost 60% of teen girls say they've been contacted on a social media platform by a stranger in ways that made them feel uncomfortable. And then as far as Utah data, we've got a few stats that are interesting. 53% of female high school students had persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, which is a 60% increase since social media was invented. We have 18% of Utah youth who seriously considered suicide in the past year. Only 37% of Utah youth got at least 8 hours of sleep on an average school night. So when we talk about the ability to learn and to stay healthy, sleep is such a huge factor. Yeah. And our kids are sleep deprived. And I mean, I think we can all agree, when we're letting kids have phones in their rooms at night and they're not able to stop scrolling because, again, those addictive algorithms, that's keeping them up at night. So the constant notifications. So some of the bills that we have passed help address some of those things.
Yeah, let's go to that. I want to touch on a couple things before we talk about what's being done, what parents can do, what educators, what all of us can do to fight this bully of social media. I learned this from the Social Dilemma movie, but it talked about there were several experts in technology and social media. And what I found interesting is they don't let their own children have social media.
Yes,
because they are very aware of how our kids are being targeted through advertising, and they, you know, it's a moneymaker, of course. But that's one of the quotes in there in that movie. The gentleman says, social media is the new drug. When I was growing up, the big push and campaign was say no to drugs. And so it's a similar concept, isn't it? That we now need to say no to social media because that is the new drug. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I feel bad for parents. So my youngest is 20. So my kids are ages 20 to 28, my 4 kids. And I feel like we're kind of, I mean, they're adults now, right? So I don't have to make them check their phones into my bedroom at night and all the stuff we used to do anymore. But I'll tell you, I feel bad for parents because a lot of them gave their kids social media and they don't know what to do now to turn it back. Like, how do you know, and so much of these kids' social life is based around this. And so, you know, there's some tips that we give parents to help wean their kids off social media. One of them is put their social media on a different device. You have an iPad or something that's a family device or a parent-owned device, and move it to that off of their phone. That's a way you can gradually start weaning them off. Have certain hours that they can check it or whatever to wean them away from that.
So number
Making
one, put the social media on a separate device. Number two,
right.
an limit your child
The
with the
time.
hours.
Yes, limit the time so that you're slowly weaning them off. Another tip is to get with your kids' friends' parents and see if you can establish shared norms and practices. So for instance, if you got together with their parents and said, look, can we all agree we're going to tell our kids they have to use texting to get a hold of each other? We're not going to do social media. That would be a really good step, because now you're not the only one and their friends are all using the same media, and you hope that parents stick to it. Sometimes that doesn't happen. So you have to be brave and courageous as a parent to say, this isn't good for you and we have got to take some steps. We do not believe there is a safe way to use social media for kids. We do not. Kids are too smart. They can get around all kinds of tools that you try to put in place to keep them safe. And it's just, you're better to just not even go there. And so if you can put some of these things in place, start having more family time where you put phones away, and maybe do a phone detox for 3 weeks to kind of get everybody, back to square one, but slowly wean them off. And then for the parents who have younger kids, if you haven't given them social media yet, yay for you. Don't do it. Like, you're going to get so much pressure to do it. I am on a Facebook group called Parenting in a Tech World. And I joined because I want to understand, now that I'm not in the throes of teenagehood, I wanted to make sure I understood like what other parents are going through still. It's mind blowing. Like, these kids are so smart. They will work around any filters. They will work around, like, they know how to get around these things. And so make your life easier, parents. I know it feels like a battle, but to just say no, and someday they'll thank you, Ed.
I can say, as a parent and as a teacher, it is the number one way to take away a child's joy. That's the way I describe it. It takes away their joy.
Yeah, no. And Arthur Brooks, he says the same thing. If you want your kids to be happy, get them off social media. There was a billboard that the governor had shared with me once that said something like, give your child social media when you're ready for their childhood to end. So, and really that's what it is. I mean, you're exposing them to people and things that their little brains are not ready for. And their childhood, you're basically saying, okay, I'm ready for your childhood to end. Here you go, feel free to peruse all of the dark, terrible things out there. And it's really hard to do. It's hard to give a kid an ice cream cone and then take it away, right? Same thing with social media.
Well, it opens up a world for them. But I heard this actually last week on the Sean Ryan podcast. He's a former Navy SEAL and talks about, current issues. But I give this person credit, but I don't know who said it. But it's this quote is, when you give a phone to a child, you're not giving your child access to the world. You're giving the world access to your child.
Ooh, I like.
So let's talk about what we can do in this social harms campaign. That's the name of the campaign, right? That's running now. Will you explain that, and what parents and educators and anyone living in the state of Utah, what we can do, and how can this be a model for other states?
Yeah. So the social harms campaign can be found on socialharms.utah.gov. Okay. So that's the website. And we started this last fall, and it began with TV ads. And I don't know if you've seen our TV ads or not, with the mask. So they have we have a mask of a boy and a girl. And, the mask looks like they're smiling and happy, and it shows them scrolling on their phone. And then they're seeing all this negative content, right? And then they take the mask off and they're crying. And it's basically to help parents understand that your child may look fine and you're giving them social media and they may seem fine, but inside they're crying, they're hurt, they're being bullied, they're dealing with all of these things coming at them. And so we need parents to understand that. So we had TV ads, we have billboards out. We talk a lot about the U.S. Surgeon General's Morning of Social Media. He came out with this last spring. And we also have some tips and data and help for parents on the website. So on the website, there's a parent presentation. It's a PowerPoint presentation. It's basically a plug and play, but it's something that you can use. You can go on and download it for free. And you can use that for family groups or church groups or school or religious or whatever groups that you have where you want to have discussions about social media and how it's affecting kids. And
It's
it has
very
a
well
lot
done.
of the data. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that
Very
you've taken a
well
look
done.
at it. So, and it's got a lot of the data points that I've talked about. But it encourages that open dialogue and discussion. And we would love for our residents in Utah to download that and use that, because it's a way that we can help spread the word and start these discussions. It's a way for you to start discussions with your kids, friends, parents, right? So anyway, that's a resource that we have available.
Yeah, watch it with your family. It is very well done and opens up a lot of conversation with your kids.
I'll tell you, the governor went to, he went to see different high schools throughout the state. And as he spoke to these kids, one of the things he asked them is, how many of you think that social media is detrimental to your mental health? I'm telling you, 50 to 80% of those kids raised their hand. Like, it was more than half. These kids know it's harming them, but they don't know what to do because it's so intertwined with their social life. And
Yeah.
so we've got to have the adults in the room who can help unwind this for them.
States, how can we support this?
Well, again, downloading the presentation, helping us spread the word, referring people to the website, the socialharms.utah.gov website is helpful. Sharing, there's also a way you can download the TV ads that we have on that website. Man,
Okay.
download those. If you've got social media as an adult, download those and share them. And help people see it, because they're very emotional, and they make the point very clear that this is harming our kids. So that is a really helpful thing. And then just talking about it. I mean, we just feel like we've got to educate. We have to talk about it. Helping even kids understand the harms and the dangers. There's some, when we hear about these suicides of people who have texted inappropriate pictures to someone thinking it's a peer, and it ends up being someone who's extorting them for money, and they threaten to share the picture unless they send them money. And then, we've got instances where these kids have killed themselves because they have felt so overwhelmed and helpless, or we've had people on social media who have taunted them to do that. Like, it's crazy what's out there. And so, recognize it's not just Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter, and it's not, there's things like Discord. Even Roblox has a chat function. Like, recognize who your kids are able to talk to, and if strangers can get a hold of them, because there's some scary stuff out there, and we just need to be really careful.
Is there extra curriculum being developed for schools?
I'll tell you, Gab creates the watches and the phones that don't have
Yes.
social media access or internet access. They are developing curriculum right now for K-3 that I believe they're planning to let people use for free. There's another group, you mentioned White Ribbon Week. The group that does White Ribbon Week, Fight the New Drug, and some of the other curriculum and help for kids of different ages, they've banded together to create a safe tech solutions for each grade, and to have some information there. So school districts are supposed to, at least in Utah, have some sort of curriculum and information for parents to help with digital safety. So we going to your school district and saying, what are you doing? Like, is this enough? Is it robust enough? And kind of pushing there is helpful. I'll tell you, one of the things too that Governor Cox would love to see is schools not having cell phones in classrooms. He sent out a letter at the beginning of the year to all of our principals, school administrators, community council members, and the state board saying, please look at your policies, work with your communities, talk to your parents, and figure out, like, what are some solutions so that these kids aren't just on their phones during the school day. I know, Melanie, you in elementary school probably don't have to deal with that as much, but our poor high school teachers, I just don't even know how you deal with that if you've got kids who aren't even paying attention and you're constantly being interrupted by notifications and kids on their phones. So anyway, those are some other ways that you can help, is go to your schools and ask to have better technology policies to keep phones out of classrooms.
And I would say that that's happening. I know for elementary, like you said, it is a lot easier at that level. So we don't have as big of a problem as the junior high and high schools do, but a teacher can do a lot. I mean, I know from my own children, a teacher can handle that pretty well. And it's a headache for sure. But you can have a teacher that just says, hey, I get it. Having access to my phone, but this is a time of learning. And I don't know, it's kind of like a mutual respect thing, but I think there's a lot that teachers can do. So thank you for mentioning that. I do want to, in closing, ask, how do you think our state of Utah compares with other states with this
Well,
campaign?
we're leading the way. In fact, I had the lieutenant governor in Ohio reach out, and we did a virtual meeting because they want to learn more about our lawsuits and why we're doing some of the things that we're doing, and our campaign and everything else. And so Utah is a leader in the nation. We really hope Congress will recognize all these different states are doing different things, and let's do something to help push back on social media companies and rein them in. So we're hoping Congress will do something, but Utah is a leader in this space. Last year, we passed 2 bills on social media. This last session, which was just a few months ago, we repealed and replaced them to try to make them stronger constitutionally to hold up in court. And so
Okay.
there's some great things that we've got there to help parents and to help hold social media companies accountable. And those will go into effect October 1st.
That's so great to hear. What are the names of those?
So we have the 2 bills. One is House Bill 464, and the
Okay.
other one is Senate Bill 194. They're called social media regulation amendments. So I'll
Okay.
tell you quickly, if we've got a few more minutes, I can
Yeah,
kind of give you an
I'll put them in the
overview.
show notes, but I think parents do like to hear this information. Sure.
Okay, perfect. So the Senate bill enacts a strict age verification process. So if you verify your age, and they can do it, they have really good facial recognition software to see what people's ages are. Anyway, long story on how we've gotten there, but if they do show that they're a minor, then their account would default to a minor account, which means it could be overridden by a parent or guardian. But a minor account would block direct messages, sharing invisibility to minors without people who are friends with them on the platform. This would disable search engine indexing and implement security measures. It disables features that lead to excessive use, like autoplay, perpetual scrolling, and push notifications. And then it would require social media companies to offer parents or guardians tools to oversee accounts. Now, the kids would have to opt those parents in.
Okay.
But there's things like setting time limits, scheduling mandatory breaks, seeing connected accounts, and all of those things that would help parents. This bill also prevents social media companies from collecting and selling data on minors without consent from the parent. So
This
those
is
are some of the things in
huge.
that one. Yeah.
This
In
is
our House
huge.
bill, the House bill is
Wow.
an interesting carrot approach that we got creative to try to have it make sure it can hold up in court. But basically, it gives minors and their parents the ability to hold them social media companies liable for the addictive algorithms and the harm that has caused children through a private right of action. And it creates a rebuttable presumption of harm. So basically, the social media company would have to prove that its platform is not harmful, which is really hard to do. Now, if the social media company wants to overcome that assumption of harm, they can do a few things. So here's the carrot approach. They can obtain parental consent for a minor's use of the platform. They can remove those addictive features that we talked about. They would have to display content chronologically instead of picking and choosing what kids see. And they would have to limit a minor's time on the platform. So no more than 3 hours in a 24-hour period, and no access from 10:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. So those are what our bills do. They're kind of a creative approach to get these social media companies on board to helping our kids. But we're really excited and looking forward to those going into effect on October 1.
Aimee, thank you. You have given us so much solid information about what's being done here in Utah. And I agree. I hope this is a model for other states to use that are trying the same tactics that we're trying. But it looks like we are a bit ahead of the game. Would you say
We
that?
are, yeah, we are absolutely leading we're leading the charge in Utah for other states and even other countries that have reached out. So it's been great.
Amazing work. Thank you so much for all this information. I hope that it helps everyone. Please go to the website. Will you say it one more time so they can
Sure.
access the social harms campaign?
Yep. socialharms.utah.gov.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes. I always like to end with a little Christian thought, and it is fight the good fight. We are fighting the good fight. This is one that it is just long overdue. And I think parents and families, we've had enough. We've had enough of, we see it firsthand. We know that this is harmful to our children. Like you, I'm so grateful that my youngest is doing well and my kids are doing well and older now, and they've learned from a lot of experiences. But there's so many issues that you can avoid in a social setting and in a family by not having our kids engage with social media. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Aimee. Wishing you all the best, and tell Governor Cox and his wife, thank you for all of this, for supporting families and for putting child's needs first. Thank you.
I will. Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks for being part of today's class. To submit a question or topic for further episodes, please email elementary.schooled@outlook.com. School is out for today, but please remember, when we strengthen a child, we strengthen society.